My name is Sarah Damon, and I have the pleasure to be the president and CEO. We believe stories heal. We believe that stories change the world, shape the world, and make our community stronger. They connect us. We are a small, closed, very special community serving the storytellers that are our members.
I'm a storyteller.
I'm a storyteller.
I'm a storyteller.
I'm a storyteller.
We're storytellers.
I'm a storyteller. I'm the guy who made Keyboard Cat. The reason I joined it was because it said media in it. I thought if it's media and I go down there to do my banking, there'll be some famous people. It turned out that they were famous because of who they were. Jamie and the rest of the clan down there they're totally famous in my book. They're like my relatives. My uncles and aunts are going to be there, and so is the credit union.
I'm Jamie. I love our members. They're great people. They're artistic. They're fun. We learn a lot from each other.
We're here at Studio A in Airway Heights, where a lot of the films in Spokane are getting made these days.
We are the Smitties. I am an actress, dancer, and we have a show called The Smitty Show. And we have a YouTube channel and a podcast that is beginning to launch.
Spokane Civic Theater is a place where actors, crew, production all come together to tell stories and be authentic to who they are whilst performing on stage.
Inland Empire Paper started in 1911, and now we've got a pretty modern machine out there that makes newsprint in various specialty grades.
My name is Heather, and I make websites. You have the freedom to make your own income and to do all kinds of different ventures. Media Credit Union is for storytellers and creatives just like me.
When we see somebody with 10 1099s last year and we think that person's a hustler, we want to know their story and we want to know them and see how we can help.
Stories matter.
Stories matter.
Stories matter.
Stories matter.
Well, we all know stories matter.
We support storytellers.
Thank you for joining us on the Down and Cut. My guest today is an award-winning actress who has graced the stage and screen. She is also a successful CEO at Media Credit Union. Sarah's journey is a testament to the power of collaboration honed through her experiences in venues such as the Spokane 50-Hour Film Slam and her work with the filmmakers of Eastern Washington. Welcome to the Down and Cut. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm very glad to be here. So glad to meet you and excited to talk a little bit about what's going on in my life and make some connections to, the folks that you've already had on in the past. So that's really, really exciting.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to have you on here. I have a lot of questions about your credit union. But first, I want to find out, how did your acting journey start? Where did that spark develop?
I think it was in high school. I kind of grew up as a tomboy. I was more of an athletic kid and an outdoor kid. Put a stick in my hand and put me in the woods and I could be a battle warrior, that type of thing. And then I got involved in the high school drama club. And, I came from a bit of rough stock where we didn't really process our emotions much or well. And I found that drama was a good way to express emotions and learn how to express emotions in a way that I didn't really grow up with. And I found it to be a really safe place. So I continued doing theater after I graduated high school and went to Spokane Falls Community College. They've got a really great drama program there. And that was about 20 years ago now, but did some wonderful shows there with some wonderful people that I have still stayed in contact with. We still act together. They're involved in the film community. And so that was really the basis of it. It was school. School got me involved. And then it started to shape really who I am as a person and round me out in my humanity. And then I just had to stick with it in some form, even as I focused on financial services as my day job. So I always kind of kept a little finger in, no matter how disconnected I got from it.
So what about the corporate side of it? How did you choose to go into the financial district as far as where you're at today, but also have your foot in the acting community? Like, was it just because of survival? Was it just because of, I got to have a day job?
Yeah, a lot of it was survival. Part of it was the school that I went to for my AA didn't have a transfer option to get a degree in theater, and I would have had to start my 4-year path over again, and that was not going to make financial sense for me. But I also think, I kind of grew up in a more hard life, and we didn't have a lot of financial support, and so there was kind of this sense of, I want to provide for myself. I don't want to be dependent on other people. And I have always really respected gig workers, and I work with a lot of them now, and really just am in awe with people who can cobble together a full-time life as a creative. At that time, I did not have the ability or even just the courage to do it. And so I got a job out of college working for a wealth management firm. I ended up staying there 15 years. So I got a lot of work experience.
Wow.
But I started part-time and working as an admin assistant and just doing, just admin work. It wasn't anything too complicated. But I must have been about 24. And I kind of went in my first annual review as a big kid and said, I really want to become increasingly more valuable to this company, and I'm willing to learn. And they took me serious, and they got me paid for my securities licenses, and they gave me opportunities. I grew into being a portfolio manager, went through the Great Recession, managing a book of business. We were about $480 million in assets under management there, and I was a trader. And then after trader, as in the stock market trader, not the traitor, as in, and so I was working with very complex Excel spreadsheets. And then the Great Recession happened, Bernie Madoff happened, the compliance landscape for wealth management firms completely changed. And the CEO at the time did not want to become the compliance officer for the firm. So I was about age 28 then. He said, the job's yours if you want to dive in. And so I was a chief compliance officer for 10 years and had to adhere to SEC compliance and FINRA compliance for 2 different types of business models that we had. And they just really continued to invest in me. I had an amazing executive committee that I was a part of, excellent mentors that walked me through my growth as a person, maturing up in business. I think there's also that aspect of we have to mature into being business professionals. And so great mentors there. And and so I just stayed in financial services, whether it's insurance, brokerage, wealth management, had a huge background in that, and then took the position as CEO of Media Credit Union in 2023 after about 18 years in financial services. So
Wow.
It's been a long path, but it really came down to a day job and being willing to learn and the generosity of people to invest in me.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of parallel in the acting world too.
Mm-hmm.
What was your major in college?
Organizational communication.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't need to be a CEO of a credit union. You don't need to be a CPA or anything like that.
You don't.
Okay.
There are vendors for that. There are a lot of vendors.
Yeah.
I mean, when we think about a CFO, you probably have to have a strong background in accounting. And I've worked with some really excellent accountants. I did kind of our office management work, payroll and bookkeeping. And so a lot of those small organizations I've worked in, you wear a lot of hats, so you pick it up. And then you hire people that are smarter than yourself to make sure that they're auditing your work and supplementing your expertise. So no, I don't have an accounting background. I have a lot of, financial services background in investments, which is actually more appropriate to my role here, because when you think about a credit union, it is a business. I mean, our assets are the loans that we have on our books and the income that is generated from those loans, or the deposits that are entrusted to us. We can invest those deposits and earn a rate of return on the investments. So as far as running a business, I have a ton of transferable skills, even though banking wasn't necessarily the business. And what's wonderful about credit unions as an industry is it's very collaborative. And not that it doesn't have elements of competitiveness, but if I need a policy or if I need help on, like I had a CFO from another credit union just come spend a day with me and look over everything that I'm doing for no charge, just because credit unions are not for profit and they're really cooperative in nature. There's just so much support. I mean, I have CEO groups where we just really share our stories and challenges and give each other resources. It's pretty incredible. So I have loved that my foray into banking has been in a very collaborative environment as the credit union industry. So that's been lucky too.
So why is it called Media Credit Union? Is it really just geared towards artists? Is that the main
It is geared
focus?
toward media, and artists fall in media. The history of our credit union goes back to 1938, and we were originally the Inland Empire paper mill, the paper employees credit union. And so they're still part of our core field of membership is the paper mill. It's out here. It's about 20 miles away from me now. We used to have a branch right across the street. And it's interesting because they made newspaper, right? And we think of all technology, pen and paper, the printing press, all of that was like the height of technology at one point. And so the paper mill made the newsprint, and then we had the Spokesman Review, which bought the paper and printed on it. And so there was a evolution of the credit union in the 1950s to include the newspaper folks, and then not just be the Spokesman Review, but other media outlets, and expanded into our local television stations and our radio stations. So a lot of it is that history is the traditional media. And it's really interesting because those, for so many decades, were incredibly stable jobs. You had 30-year photographers, you had 30-year writers, staff writers, editors, people who sold the advertising, you put your advertising in the newspaper. And so very, very stable work for a very long time. And then what we've been seeing since the late 90s is kind of this consolidation of how media works as technology changes. And we move online and we move into media being social and people getting their news in social media locations. So it's, where the Spokesman Review maybe had 15 photographers in the 90s, they might have 4 now. And every one of us has a media company in our pocket with our phone. And so everyday people take excellent video, photography, submit that to traditional news outlets, and then they use those pieces from the community. So they don't have to have as many people on staff. And as media has started to evolve into almost like a gig economy or the creative economy, we have to evolve as well and say, okay, well, we're still here for those media professionals. The technology has just changed. How do we keep up? How do we identify different financial needs for those people that are still our core? They just do their work differently, tell their stories differently and in different formats or on different mediums. How do we meet those needs? And so that's what's really cool about it, because we're evolving as our membership evolves.
Yeah. How does one become a member? Is there a prereq where you have to say, well, I am a filmmaker or I am a content creator or a photographer? How does that, is there?
Yeah, there is. And so
Okay.
It's interesting because all credit unions at one point were what we call closed field of membership. You had to work somewhere or be a part of some kind of industry. And over time, credit unions have become more and more open. We have a lot of credit unions. So if someone is listening to this and they can't join our credit union, one, if they are a business owner, have a business or a part of an association, come talk to me. Let's see if we can expand our field of membership for you. But there's a lot of credit unions that are just open, and their field of membership is you live or you work or you worship in a certain geographic location, and that's the only qualifier. And there's wonderful credit unions that have that. We are not. We're still kind of true to that original founding where we're closed. And so we have been working with groups like We Few, like Spokane Film Project, to expand our field of membership, which we're in the middle of our NCUA filings for these things now. So I can't even say they're done, but we have, we have the documentation we need. We have our filings in order, where if you're a member, a board member, a volunteer of these kind of organizations, then you can join the credit union, which is wonderful. So we're in the process of that evolution right now. And maybe even by the time this airs or someone listens to it, that list is going to be a little different. But we do make the list available on our website, and that's at smfcu.org, where you can find out, or even just talk to us, because it depends on where you've done some of your work. We have North by Northwest, for example. They've been a part of our field of membership for many, many years. And we had a lot of people that were part of the Z Nation show and on the Sci-Fi Channel. And so, there's people that have been working for these employers in our list. They just don't know that we exist yet. That my mission is to change that.
Yeah. Well, I hope this helps. I hope this
me
opens
too.
the door for you. Okay. So our guests are probably going, okay, what are you guys going to start talking about acting? All right, here we go. I want to find out from your perspective as an artist, an actress who's done film and stage, what are the qualities or skills do you believe set an exceptional actor apart from the rest?
Wow. I think you have to start with listening. That's what my gut goes toward. So much of acting is reacting and listening. And there's so many great performers that we have heard say that over and over and over again. And I think it is so true. I think it's not just listening, but it's almost positioning your body to listen, if that makes sense. Because when I think of being self-conscious as an actor, I don't think of it as being nervous or being scared in a way. I think of it as I'm self-conscious, I'm self-focused, I'm actually thinking of myself. Now, maybe I'm nervous, or maybe I'm trying to be perfect, but being self-conscious means that I'm not conscious of you, my scene partner. I'm not conscious of the story or the feelings that I have an opportunity to tap into in this scene or in this play. And so I think it's really about listening, but letting the body be predisposed to not be self-conscious. So it's a lot of self-regulating and knowing when I am and just being really honest about it, because I don't think anybody's immune. But knowing when I am, and then working with my body to self-regulate it so that I can get back into being focused on the other person, to listening and reacting. Because I think when we just connect as people, our emotions show up. We're empathetic people. And so if I'm feeling another person's pain, I'm going to show up. And even if that pain is scripted, that empathy is real. So much of the ways we are in these stories is we're just emulating real life and real relationships, and our empathy is still real. So I also think that, honesty is a big part of being a good actor, is approaching the text in that way, that there's no lying in acting. In fact, acting is an incredibly honest venture. I think of it, and there's so many parallels to business too. When I think of acting, because you can have really good business people, right? But we can kind of smell that disingenuousness on people, that salesman quality. We know that they're self-focused. They're on what they can get from us. And we get a sense that they're not really listening to us or really focused on us. And so some of the same skills that I think make good performers actually make good business people in a way, because they're really just connecting with who you are if they're a good business person, and seeing if what they have meets your needs, and they're not pushing their agenda or focused on them. And so I think there's good actors and bad actors in business, and there's good actors and bad actors on stage, and a lot of those qualities are the same.
I think of a car salesman. That's the stereotypical car salesman. What are the key differences, in your opinion, between acting for film and acting for theater, and how have your experiences shaped your understanding of these two distinctions?
Oh, that is so interesting. When I think about being on stage, there's always that element of distance. Your voice has to cover a greater distance to the audience. Your expressions have to cover a greater distance because they're literally just sitting further away. And on film, they're not. They are looking at you 2 inches from your face. And so we talk about, maybe being more internally connected on film, where you can overact really easily for the camera. And I think that's why a lot of film people are really nervous about bringing stage actors into collaboration, because they're worried they're just going to be these, musical theater queens that cannot settle, cannot focus. But I don't think that that's true. I think that's, like a stereotype. It might apply to some people, but I don't think it applies to everyone. And so I think that there is nuance that comes with film. But I've also found that on film, I can be a little bigger than I think. Like I remember being so self-conscious about my eyebrows when I was learning to be on camera. And I was like, don't move your eyebrows. If you move your eyebrows, you won't look like a human. But then I just didn't move my eyebrows, and then I looked like I looked terrible. So I was like figuring out, like, no, you can operate like a normal human would. Just be aware of how close the camera is and adjust accordingly. And if that camera or the eyes of the audience, think of it as the same, is really far away, well, then you can telegraph that to be bigger, So there's something to it, I think, there. But I think that the material that you work on is different as a stage actor versus a film actor too. And the way that the material is written changes your choices. And so that brings out different qualities in and of itself too.
Yeah, that was my next question about developing a character. I kind of think of it as like it's a volume. You turn up the volume in your theater, turn it down just a little bit more, be more subtle, and just let the vibrations kind of like resonate from your being of the character versus voicing it,
Well, I think that has to do with the structure of the material, because when you're a stage actor, you are the editor. Think of it like a film editor, where you are going to go for your journey, where maybe you're going to fundamentally change as a human in the next hour and a half in front of this audience. And so when you're thinking about what this actor is going through on stage, I always think of it like driving a car, shifting your gears. And sometimes you have to shift really fast, and it feels so weird in your body, because like, I'm not feeling like I'm going from 2 to 10, but this character is going to go from 2 to 10, and we're going to shift and hit the RPMs. And you have to do that in a way that's going to completely tell a full story, a full transition. What's great, I think, about film is you're not responsible for that. The editor is responsible for what the audience ultimately experiences and the journey that your character takes. So the responsibility is also very different in how you telegraph to the audience the important information they need to know about the story, important information they need to know about you, and they need to see your discoveries and your changes all really clear. Because a frustrated audience for the stage is like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what they're doing or why. So you have to be really aware of their experience and make that whole experience in an hour and a half. And then in film, you just don't have the job. So I think where you can focus on being like honing those smaller moments is to know that all you're responsible for is that moment. And then the editor and post will take all of that, and they will create something that maybe you can't even foresee. You don't even really know the story you're in. You just know the moments you're being directed to portray. So focus really, like, indulge in those little moments, because that's your only job. Yeah, I think it's different.
Have you found yourself watching your performance going, oh, I didn't know they were going to go there with it?
Yes. I have. So there's a 50-hour film that we made in 2016 called Tiny Armor. And we shot it out of order. It was not scripted completely because it was a 50-hour slam. There were certain lines that I knew I had to say. And so they gave me the intention, they gave me the lines. I kind of knew maybe what was going to happen, but we didn't shoot like the final reveal until the last shot.
Yeah.
So I was discovering in real time what the film was really about. I go to the editor's room. We're there. I think Hannah was the editor on that. I don't know her last name. She was so amazing. I burst into tears at this film because I was so in awe of her work and the cinematography and the way that this whole thing was built. And it had, I hit the notes. I hit the notes for the character that we needed. And I felt really proud that I did.
Yeah.
But they created the story that the audience sees. And I was so moved by that work. So yeah, that's definitely an example where I did not see the forest for the trees is the expression. And I was so delighted when I finally did.
That is probably one of the best film competition films that I've ever seen, because it hits you. It totally hits you. It starts off of like, oh, okay, this is kind of silly. You know what I mean? And then it leads you down this path. You're like, oh, yeah. So we'll definitely link that in the show notes for everyone to watch. What are your thoughts on balancing between the technical skill of acting and then the emotional authenticity in acting? How does this balance manifest in your work?
I don't know that they're different for me. I think I can approach things from a technical mindset, because I think, and I'm learning from really incredible actors. I'm going to give a plug for a show I'm directing right now, which is an original work called Minister of Sorrow by Pam Kingsley. And Hazel Beam plays, it's a one-woman show. And so not only does she play the main character, but she plays all of these different characters that are in Appalachia, the people of the hills that she has learned from. And she has this mechanic like in her body that she can, again, like shifting a car, she technically shifts an emotion into a place in her body, and it turns that emotion on. And I have been paying attention as a student of acting, to, even though I'm directing the show, to her work and her technique. And it's in my recent memory because I can see her doing it, but there's ways where I've done it too, where I think of, this is where it drops kind of down into my stomach, and we can kind of feel how we feel when we're sick, in our stomach, and that triggers something in our face and in our voice. And there's also those other things when we're happy, how our eyes and there's a lightness and a brightness that comes to us. And so the technical aspects of performing, I think, inform the emotional aspects of performing. And the more I can sync them together, the more I feel like I can be consistent. And it's the consistency in film that I think is really the challenge when you're doing multiple takes from multiple angles and really staying connected, even if you're breaking it to 2 lines. You got to do the over the shoulder and you do the 2 lines. And half the time I'm trying to do it in the same way when I'm not on camera, so that my scene partner is receiving the same performance that I gave when I was on camera, or that I'm about to give when I'm on camera. Yeah. And that consistency is so hard. And so if I can root it into places in my body and think of that technically, it helps. I think it helps.
That's a great example. I think there's been situations where I've been in a scene and not knowing, and I'm thinking of the situation, the scene, the lines, got that down, and then you're going to delivery, and as you deliver, like my voice, because it's an emotional scene, my voice cracks. And I wasn't expecting that. And you're like, where did that come from? And then, my wife, the co-director, is going, do that again. You're like, it just came out. It was a surprise. What are, you mentioned you're directing a one-woman show. How do you find time?
Well, I think my board of directors has insisted that I take time for myself. So I have a little bit of accountability where they said, no, we want you to, we know you love directing. We know you love acting. And also we're serving members who work in the arts. So this is also me just being part of the community that we serve. And as the CEO of the credit union, I should be in the community that we serve. So I think I can justify it as a little bit related to work.
I think that's awesome. That's a win-win.
I've had a lot of support, and it's difficult to find time. This one has been wonderful because I cast it so early. I wanted to give her plenty of time to memorize. I think it's 40 pages of material. So we cast it in August, and she's such a smart, an emotionally intelligent performer. So I'm like, she doesn't need direction on all of these choices from me, but I grew up as a country kid, and I know country folk and I love them. And so I can meet up with her to make sure she's memorizing her lines in the woods. And I can meet up with her to make sure she's memorizing her lines on a horse farm. And I can meet up with her. So we kind of did these adventures out in the community that ties in a physical way her to her character and the way that her character might live in the world. And then she can do the work, as the actress, to make those emotional choices. So we eked it out over a long period of time. So by the time we were actually in the theater and started to block this thing, and we were day one working with props. I mean, she was off book. So it was very much like a professional regional theater where you can show up and mount in a week and a half and go, because everybody's done their prep work. So I just led us through a very long prep work process so that we could have it be a really professional rehearsal schedule too.
What are some of the biggest challenges you face as an actress, both within film competitions and other acting experiences, and how have you overcome these challenges?
So much of it is between your left and right ear. So much of it for me is mindset and thinking about what would make me feel satisfied to feel or to portray, and really being confident that if someone doesn't like that choice, that it's not because I'm a bad decision maker. It's because maybe they just have a different perspective on the character or the scene. So much of it is confidence in my own creation, I think. And sometimes as actors, we are also people pleasers. I mean, we want to deliver what the director wants. We want to do the shot. We want to do it perfectly. We want to do it perfectly 10 times. And all of that desire just builds up as pressure. And that's when I talk about self-regulating. It's just letting that go. and the director may not know what they want. Like the writer of this play is so beautiful. And I couldn't be in her head when she was writing the text, right? She would have an image in her mind of what it is. And I can't ever live in another person's head. So I can only come at it with the creative choices that I think are the most interesting and fun or challenging, and really hope that the way I interpret it is going to honor the heart of what she wrote. And same thing as an actor, how I interpret the words will honor what the screenwriter or the playwright wrote. And so I think it's not like confidence. It's like it's really just being vulnerable and choosing what I think is going to be best and trusting my instinct. And that's scary as a people pleaser.
Yeah. I think the key thing you mentioned is just not taking it personal when there's direction. What would you say is the most constructive criticism that you've ever received in your career in the film industry?
Can you do it again like a normal human would? Just
wow.
Would you do it just like a person would do it?
Wow. What were you doing? What had happened?
I think it was a brother and sister scene, and I think I was kind of not as buddy with the other actor yet. I think I was, you do a lot of, especially I grew up in the ingenue kind of track, right? So you're always like on stage with another person and you're falling in love and you're sweet. And so I had, felt really comfortable in that. And so I was kind of in this brother-sister role, which I had never really played before. And I was just awkward and I didn't relax. So she's like, he's just your brother. Like, just stop, just do it like a person would. Okay. I'll try.
That's great.
Yes, ma'am. And
it stuck with you. It's awesome.
I tell that story every time I direct because I don't think there's a worse note you can get as an actor and still have your ego recover. But I also worked with that director more than any other director, and I respect her opinion, and she has made me a much better actor. I would not have the confidence creatively that I do today had I not worked with that director. So
Yeah.
I also just find that story so endearing because it also really, like you said, it toughened me up. It toughened me up, and it just, yeah. And I love working with her still. It was the best piece of advice. And I say it to myself too, like, just stop. Don't think about it. Just do it like a person. You're just a person.
Just be a person. Who's the director?
Do I say her name?
Yeah.
The great Dawn Taylor Reinhardt told me that when she was directing me in Other Desert Cities at the Modern Theater.
Nice.
I love and respect that creative more than I could ever say. She's, and she's an amazing performer too. But yeah,
That's
fabulous,
awesome.
fabulous creative.
How do you define success in your acting career, and how do goals and rewards of acting within the film competition compare to your broader career and aspirations?
As far as pursuing acting as my side avocation, as my passion, I feel like I've been able to get more opportunities because I don't rely on it for my income. And there's people who do it professionally and it is their income. I have so much respect for that. It is wonderful. And for me, because I don't have the financial pressure on it, I feel like I can take it with the audition process with a little more lightness. Like I always love auditioning because I always think I do these things just to nerd out at my home. And here's 3 people who I really respect their opinion, and they're going to adjudicate me, whether it's on camera or it's in an audition room, and they have to watch me for like 3 minutes. Like you can't pay for that kind of attention, you know? And so I really enjoy like this idea of performing for people who give me stakes that I really care about what they think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because I enjoy that process and I relax a little, it's not, if I get the job, I pay my rent. I think that gives me a more ease in the audition room. And I think that also gives me more opportunities. And I've been successful in that way. So it helps. And then for the people who do need it to pay their rent, they have to hone that skill like steel, where they're going to have an ease. And if they don't get this job, well, there's just another one around the corner. And this casting director would be remiss if they pass them over. And they just come in with that. I have such respect for that because they do have to pay their rent that way. And so I have the skill a little bit, but there's people who have it honed even greater than I do.
How do you stay inspired and motivated? Because you don't need to pay your rent from acting. Like, how does the collaborative spirit and film contribution to overall artistic growth kind of feed you?
I think I've always, in my prior life in wealth management, it was very different. It was very heady. It was not, it was a very for-profit mindset, capitalism, pressure, and so the creative arts have been a way for me to recheck in with my humanity and recheck in with who I am as a person, that I'm not the work that I do at 9 to 5. I am an artist and I pay my bills through my professional career. And I feel really grateful that I get to pay my bills through my professional career, but it's not who I am. And I think that's what art does, is it reminds us of who we are as people. And that's really important because it's our humanity, both acknowledging our own, because that's hard enough, and then coming together with our shared humanity in a world that's really complicated right now. And the arts kind of gives us opportunities to be in those spaces with people who are different than us, think different than us, and just be humans. So I get really inspired by just staying connected to who I am as a person, not who I am as my day job. And it's harder almost with being the CEO of the Media Credit Union because the lines blur. I love it. But the lines do blur where I'm like, well, if I go to this event, am I going as Sarah? Am I going as the CEO of the credit union?
Right.
And it probably doesn't matter because I am me and I represent my job well with dignity and enthusiasm. But I would be in these spaces anyway, because that's what keeps me thriving and alive as a person. I just find it really interesting to work with people that I think we're all just kind of a bunch of big kids, and our toys get cooler and cooler in film or theater. And so it's really a great way to just spend our lives if our lives are truly just how we spend our time and who we spend our time with, being in the arts, whether it's film, theater, in any other creative way, that's such a great way to spend my life. Makes it a good life. And working with other people who want to spend their time that way is so inspiring, because there's a lot of people that don't get paid enough for the level of expertise they have, whether it's in crew or in post-production, or there's a lot of it that is the passion projects. And
Absolutely.
that is how we spend our lives. And that's so inspiring. So I hope I answered your question somewhere.
You
in
did.
there.
You actually had me think of more questions. I think it's a win-win where you're at, because you understand both sides. And I think going to events and promoting the credit union, you can go as an experienced actress who's been in the production side. What was the previous CEO in the media field at all? No.
No. They were an excellent manager and ran the credit union for, I think she was here 22 years. But she was more involved in other areas of the community. And what she was really great at was the credit union industry as an industry is a not-for-profit industry. It's a pro-social good industry. It's different than banking. And because, we are not-for-profit, there are benefits that we get that banks don't get. And you have to defend that over and over again when it comes to our legislators and the laws. And so my prior CEO, she was an advocate for the industry. She did a lot of advocating at the national level, the state level, and volunteered a lot of her time to make sure that the credit union industry continues to survive and thrive. So her focus was on that, which is great. It was a wonderful focus. And that's because that's who she was, and that was her passion. And when the board was she was retiring, right? So they had to replace her position anyway. They thought, well, how are we actually going to, as a small credit union, we only have 1,200 members. We're a very small credit union. And so how are we going to live for the next 85 years? How are we going to innovate to meet media professionals for the next, decades? And so finding someone who just happened to, be in this area just naturally as who I am as a person, with the financial experience that I had, it really was a unicorn of an opportunity. Yeah. It just fit.
Definitely a win-win. What kind of advice would you give to aspiring actors who are just getting started in the journey, drawing upon your experiences both within and outside film competitions and theater and business?
I think the first thing is to always think of safety first, and making sure that the people that you're working with are vetted in some way. I think there's a lot of opportunities or ways, and I think we're a pretty savvy, culture now that we know there's a lot of dangers. I was kind of coming as a new actor where it was like you could still kind of trust going to somebody's house. But I find even as an actor now, it's like a film slam and they give you an address and you're like in the middle of nowhere and you're like, gosh, I really hope this is safe. So I think part of it is you really need to collaborate, really need to connect with other people. The 50-hour film slam in Spokane, people come up from Portland, come over from Seattle to participate. It will not start the slam on Friday night until everybody has a team. And so people come and don't have a team. They're an actor. They want to get involved. If you're brand new, that's a great Friday night to show up at, because then you'll get to know some people in an arena that has safety measures in place. Yeah. And so I think part of it is, and then also, so that's one thing, is finding a safe way to collaborate with people. And so the slams are a great way to do that. School's a great way to do that. You don't have to be a theater major to sign up for a theater class in college, or even just take one as part of like a community theater environment. There's a lot of improv troupes that will have, come to 5 improv classes. And improv is so much about listening and responding. So anything that you can do to just start sharpening those skills and meeting people that like to play in a safe way, I think that's a great way to get involved. You really, as an actor, have to go out there and meet people. It is, you drop your name, you introduce yourself, you go to events alone and make friends, and then bring somebody with you to the next event. It's networking, but it's networking in a way where you know that it'll give you opportunity.
What genre would your life be if someone were to direct a film about you?
It's so good. Okay, I will say something like a comedy. Like it would just have to be a comedy, like a general. But I would love it to be something super meta, where it's like it's written by a woman, it's directed by a woman. And it almost seems like it could be on the indie side, but she just does these ridiculous things for like different periods of her life where it's almost like she's different characters in her own play, but it's all her. So it'd have to be some kind of comedy, but not like a traditional rom-com. It'd be a funky thing where you have to think about it later.
That's a good answer, where it actually is not, it's not a cookie cutter.
No.
Some people have said.
It would be an art film,
Yeah.
It probably would not do well in distribution.
Sarah, what is next? Anything you're working on now or the near future? I know you mentioned the play.
As far as next in the docket, so my husband had been the resident music director for Civic Theater for 8 years.
Nice.
And he great job, really wonderful opportunity, and he'll forever be involved. It's kind of his home theater. But he recently made a transition after getting his MFA in music composition to the Spokane Public Radio full-time. I mention that because he's a writer and he's a composer, and he and I have been working on a musical for the past 8 years, which we workshopped back in 2022, maybe 2023, and got a lot of great feedback on it. We have 120 minutes of material and about 12 songs that are finished, which is really close to a concept album. So our goal for 2025 is to take a little bit of a break away from the stage productions that take so much time and re-dive into finishing our musical that we're writing. And then, of course, I'll do the 50-hour slam coming up in the spring because, well, I've been on the same team for 2 years, and we've got a trilogy kind of mindset. I just know it. We're going to wrap up this buddy comedy that I've got going with David Bullis, and I can't wait.
Is the 50-hour slam, is that every spring, once a year?
Mm-hmm. Once a
Only
year.
Once a year, okay.
And the 50-hour slam, it's 50hourslam.com. They're their own nonprofit now. So you can get information about how to sign up and get involved. They have all the criteria you have to learn, obviously, on that night. So nobody goes ahead of time. But you can watch videos from prior submissions, see who's won in prior years, just to get a feel for it. And I think usually 40 teams will sign up and then maybe 25 to 30 finish. It's hard. 50 hours is a hard go. But
I laugh because in Seattle we have 48 hours.
You have 40. Oh, okay, bragger. It too less.
We lose 2 hours.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah.
I would love to come over and do that slam too. I've followed it and I've watched the videos. Yeah. I'd love to learn more about that one too.
What's your favorite tech?
Well, I have to go back to composition, right? Because we are writers and composers, and I think Sibelius, as far as a composition tool, gets a little underloved compared to Pro Tools. But I think now that they're integrating the two, I'm going to go for Sibelius,
Nice.
and because it prints to sheet music. So if
That's really
ever a filmmaker or a writer was wanting to work with a live orchestra or a live band, the ability to export sheet music out of Sibelius is really important because then you can get kind of that live sound and then integrate that into your soundtrack. So that's the tool I'd highlight.
Do you play any musical instruments?
Very poorly, lots and very poorly. So Henry and I are working on accordions right now.
Oh, wow.
It's so awesome. Okay, so an accordion is basically like Guitar Hero. Hang with me. I play very poor guitar as well. I say I practiced my chords. So I sing and play guitar. But with a guitar, you have to hold your strings down perfectly to strum it and have it make the note. You hold one button of an accordion and open that bellows, and it's like full harmony, man. So accordions went out of style, but they are literally like you hit the button, you make the note. It's so close to Guitar Hero. I love it. I play the bass line. Henry does both. We will not be going on the road anytime soon, but we have a lot of fun with it.
That's awesome. A buddy of mine he was so into accordions. I don't know if he ever bought one, but he wanted to get one of those, I don't know, the smaller versions.
Or like the concertinas or the, I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, or just small. And Sarah, we talked about technology. We talked about the future. We talked about kind of innovation. What are your thoughts on AI?
AI is interesting because it's affecting all of our industries. With the strikes last year, I think that was incredibly well timed to say, you can't recreate our likeness if we're extras. You can't do AI generation for Writers Guild. Like those union efforts, I think, are going to go a long way to set some boundaries on what AI should and shouldn't do for humans. But I also find it really fascinating when, I think about even my profession in financial services. Everybody's thinking about, okay, what can we automate as far as routine jobs and things that don't require creativity? And the one thing that we know we really can't outsource to these machines or machine learning is true human creativity. And so, yeah, it can model it. Yeah, it can mirror it, and it can write some stuff. But I really think that we will always be fighting for the human experience, particularly in media and storytelling. And there's going to be a fight for honesty in that and integrity in that. So what can we outsource as far as jobs go? And I don't really know. I mean, if I was a sound engineer and I'm thinking about how it can simplify sound engineering in post, that might make me feel a little threatened. If I'm, there's a lot of different jobs that have AI integrating in, and so I can see the threat of those things. But I can also say if it can take jobs that are routine and can open up our minds and creativity to be focused on what humans do best, then that's a real good opportunity for the future. So I don't think all is lost, but if you're working in media and we're thinking about how scary it is for deep fakes and story, just the ability to spread misinformation so quickly, and that being, we could get into a doomsday scenario pretty quick when it comes to AI generation of content or faking, content. So that's pretty scary just from a social standpoint, from a news standpoint. So every aspect of media that we work with has some concerns, and I think that they're very important concerns, and they can be grave concerns. And so I'm hoping that our lawmakers, and they're actually thinking of these things coming into this next 4-year session or the 8-year session, because we're going to have some come from a compliance background. The reality is when there's money to be made, people will push the limits. And when people push the limits, that runs the risk of security, of privacy, of protections for our jobs. And so I hope there's enough at stake that lawmakers are thinking of that and really focused on AI in ways that they need to be. So here's hoping. We'll see.
Yeah. Sarah, I appreciate your time. Quick question. For people that join the credit union, do they have to be in the Spokane area?
No, but they do. Right now we're Washington based. So if they are working or associated with one of the organizations on our list and in Washington State, we would love to talk to them and see how it can help.
Awesome. And we will post that in the show notes. What's the best way for people to reach you if you want to be reached?
Reach me. You can call me at our credit union. You can email me at sarahd@smfcu.org. You can go to our website, smfcu.org, or mediacreditunion.com if you can't remember the acronyms. And
Awesome.
Hit the contact us button. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, I'm Acting Like Sarah is my handle, and you can find me there too.
Your handle's Acting Like Sarah.
Yeah.
Acting like a human. Perfect.
Acting like
Thank
a
you,
human.
Sarah.
I locked that down really early. There's been conversations with other Sarahs who would love to have that handle, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, but no, I'm keeping it.